tough. Does it make for a funny story, and does everyone love it? When we run the photo, sure. It's a tough balance.
Have any Jewish institutions asked you to come in to talk about your work in journalism?
No. No. Brooklyn College. I gave a guest lecture at Brooklyn College a little while ago.
That's a semi-Jewish institution.
Yeah, it's as close as you get, actually. It's funny.
How is the New York Post regarded
I
by...
I take that back. You know what I did? I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. I did it, and I really enjoyed it. I just absolutely enjoyed it. It was, I don't know if you know, there's actually 3 Orthodox Jews who are in the tabloid world. There's me. There's another Reuven. There's Reuven Fenton, who works at the Post also. And I don't know if you know. Do you know Simone Weishenbaum? I'm probably mispronouncing her last name. She's sweet. She's a sweetheart. So she got. We're all sort of friends. So she got. Although we kind of compete because she's at the other paper, obviously. But she got a speaking at this a group called Cholent, a Thursday night thing. About a year or 2 ago, we did.
Is that for kind of rebels?
Yes.
Cholent?
Yes.
Yeah. I've heard about that. It was written in the New York Times. Yeah.
If you're ever in New York, you should check it out. It's an experience.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that was a good time doing that.
Yeah, I was really good. It was really, really good. I think a lot of people were super angry. It was shortly after the bar mitzvah thing. It was also shortly after I wrote about Mati Berger and his suicide and being molested, or allegedly being molested by Baruch Leibovitz, who was on trial at the time. So there was a lot of controversy going on in some of the stuff that in the news. And people were really curious about it. They wanted to know about it. And a lot of the people there actually knew, almost like the entire crowd either knew, knew something about the rabbi at the bar mitzvah, or knew Leibovitz, or knew the kid, I forgot his name, Mati Berger. So it was kind of a really fascinating and eye-opening discussion about all of that with people who were involved and were familiar with the people or the communities.
How do the journalists who don't work for the tabloid press regard you in the tabloid press?
Oh, that's an obvious, there's a total disdain for it, I have a colleague who switched over to there's the New York Post and the Daily News, which are basically both tabloids, but the Daily News is a little bit more respected, and his new colleague at the Daily News approached him and welcomed him, and he told him, this is what I've heard hearsay, but he told him, he's like, welcome to the paper that tells the truth, It's a lot of, there's a lot of back and forth craziness, and there's no doubt that we obviously gin tons of stuff up that's kind of ridiculous, and but the same vein that the New York Times makes everything into an intellectual approach to some of the craziness out there, and takes a very intellectual approach and doesn't take a position, and so there's benefits in both styles, I think.
Wait, isn't the Daily News also a tabloid?
Yeah, Daily News is a tabloid. Yeah, and it's a little bit less of the craziness though.
I guess Larry Kohler worked for the Daily News for a while, and then went back to the Jewish Week.
I don't know him, actually. No, I don't know him.
Okay. Are there any Orthodox Jews that you're aware of at the New York Times, writing for the New York Times?
That's a good question. No, I don't know of any. No, I don't. I'm sure there are. I just don't know. I think Friedman, right? I forgot his name. Sorry, the one you were talking about. Who used to write the religious section?
Ari Goldman. Goldman.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think he was. I don't know how Orthodox, but I think he's very affiliated, obviously. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there is any that I know of. I don't know that many. The New York section is smaller, honestly, than it's a different kind of section. And no, that's a really good question. That's a really good point. I don't think there are any. No, that's a good
Do you know of any other Orthodox Jews working in journalism in the New York area aside from your 2 colleagues in the tabloid press?
Yeah, I know a bunch. There's, do you know Michael Orbach? He's really sweet. He was doing the Jewish Star for a long time. And he yeah.
In the what about in the regular secular press?
Oh, Orthodox. No, I don't.
It's a really hard thing to pull off, being a frum Jew and working in the news media.
Yeah, to me especially, the big thing has always been the big major challenge. Shabbos has been killer. It's been very difficult, especially because my 2 jobs have been, my deadline's always been on Friday, which is ridiculous. I'm looking forward to someday where I don't have to deal with that. But it's just ridiculous. When I first started working at the Post, I was on a story. I found out later that the editor was so frustrated that they wanted more information, or they were trying to get hold of me. They literally sent a reporter to my house on Javas to talk to me. Yeah. I was like, really? You went that far? I think I must have been in Charlotte or something because I wasn't home. They door knocked their own reporter, essentially, which is ridiculous.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that story.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
well, they're extreme. I mean, what we'll do for a story, I mean, we will not stop. You know, I mean, that's not that shocking. They never told me about it, actually. My editor, I think, was embarrassed by it. I found it out later, actually, from some colleagues.
So who has more, what's the attitude towards Orthodox Judaism among the journalists, you know, towards Orthodox Judaism and Orthodox Jews?
You know, I think they're super respectful. You know, I think there's also sort of this understanding that there's a lot of nonsense that goes on in the community. But, you know, frankly, a lot of the reporters are Jewish. They're just not Orthodox. So I think in that sense, I think the Orthodox world to them is like a bit of a mystery. And I think they're always like I think it's refreshing. I try very hard to, you know, I wear a yarmulke, and you know, I'm very proud of that. Like I'll go to, you know, when I first started working, you know, it was important for me to do that. So I think it's important for me to show, look, you know, there's Orthodox Jews and they're normal, you know, that they're not, you know, totally crazy, you know, they're not sort of extreme to some extent, and they're, you know, so I think that's on a personal level. You know, the larger level, I mean, I don't, you know, it's difficult for me. We don't talk about it. It's not like a talk like, hey, what do you think about Orthodox Jews? It doesn't come up. But, you know, look, I mean, they cover, you know, there's tons of scandals all the time, and they're constantly, you know, they're well aware of, you know, some of the nonsense that goes on in the community. But there was one recently, like in my neighborhood, some guy was hooked up with it's just bizarre, like a few blocks away from where I live, frankly. This guy, he like dolphins in the show across the street, you know, from my apartment. He was hooked up with a woman and he claimed to be a, I want to say Guggenheim or some famous, like, Rockefeller, I think, or some famous, like, wealthy family or something. And it turns out that he might actually be, like, somehow related, but he was just using that to, like, scam people out of money, and the guy lived here for years. It was just a bizarre story, and he was arrested. And, you know, once the arrest happens, you know, it's free game, you know, and you know, they're always trying to find out. You know, they were obviously trying to find out, like, how this guy it's a mystery to me how he got involved with this, like, woman who was just sort of almost like this drifter, blonde, you know, who was involved in the scheme. It was just one of the strangest stories. But stuff like that, you know, pops up, frankly, more often than you think, you know, and they're covering that. So they're aware of, you know, that there's just, you know, like any other community, they're aware of, you know, craziness happens.
Well, in my experience, most non-Orthodox Jews have contempt for Orthodox Jews, and most non-Jews have respect for Orthodox Jews. What's been your experience?
I think that's generally, I think that's generally, you know, that's a fair assumption to make in the general way. I think contempt's a strong word. I don't know if there's like contempt. I think there's just, you know, I think they
disdain, disgust. I mean, non-Orthodox Jews tend to have really strong feelings about Orthodox Jews. No?
You know, it depends. Like you know, my first editor, he's Jewish, he's not religious. But I think he was, you know, I think he had that feeling like of disdain and disgust. I think he, you know, just covering city politics, I think he sort of developed that. You know, it depends. I think there's a lot of, you know, some of the editors of the Post are Jewish, and you know, I don't think they have that attitude about it. I think it's more sort of like a curiosity. You know, I think it also depends like how religious you are, what communities you've, you know, grown up in, or where you've raised. You know, it just really, really varies. I think it's just, you know, just very, very, you know, varies depending on, you know, where you're from and how you were raised.
What were some of the biggest obstacles for you to succeed in journalism? Like, what did you have to overcome, or like problems perhaps from your upbringing that you had to surmount to succeed in journalism?
My writing, I'm much, but I think it's just a skill set. My writing I'm not as strong as a writer as I am as a reporter. So it was a challenge to like learn the writing skills. Still sort of it's an ongoing challenge. I struggle with it. I think from yeshiva background a little bit, like you tend to write like it's a lot of words. You know, you say a lot of, you know, you tend to write like long-winded. I think that's, you know, in general way they were sort of taught. So that was a challenge. I think that was sort of like the number one challenge that I had.